My dear students, AIMS is done, and now we have the NEET that is approaching. We have roughly around 23 to 24 days to go. And what is it that I'm supposed to do? How is it that I'm supposed to take my whole preparation forward? Right? Okay, now calm down and do listen to what I have to say a little bit very carefully. This is NEET, what is coming. It was not AIMS, right? AIMS will settle a few students. AIMS has always been a very prestigious examination, and CEDEES family has been topping AIMS for so many years, and it's amazing to top AIMS. There's no doubts about it. But the happiness that we get when our students top the NEET exams is, I think, we cannot compare it, but it's on a different level, because most of us get settled down because of our NEET exams. Whether you get through the best government colleges, you're speaking of KGMC or Maulana Azad or any of the GDCs, all the GDCs in the country. You're speaking of the best private colleges, the deemed universities. You're speaking of the best management seats that is available. You're speaking about the army. You are speaking about whatever you speak about. It's your NEET exam which settles you, right? So first and foremost that you got to do is to say, okay, AIMS is done and dusted. A lot of things that I've learned from my AIMS, but AIMS is now over, right? I'm not going to think about AIMS from now on, right? Now, a few things about AIMS which I'd like to stress now before we go on. Now, you wrote AIMS. It was a 3-hour paper. It started at 10:15, right? So all of us kept waiting there, right, from 7:30 or 8 o'clock since the time you entered the hall, and you're waiting there till almost like 10:15. So you can imagine the kind of, the kind of tiredness your body and your mind, and the kind of frustration sometimes getting through, and the fear just keeps compounding, with every minute that is going by. So you wrote AIMS. It was 200 questions and it was 3 hours, and still some of us found that time management was an issue. Right? Now what happens is, whenever you give a normal exam, like every week we have a live test in CEDEES, and every week when you give a live exam, some of us take full 2 hours, some of us take 1.5 hours, and you're able to solve around 200 questions quite comfortably, right? That's because they're objective questions. We test more on recall to see how you're able to get through and arrive at the answer from what you have studied, right? And the same thing is done by AIMS. It's mainly to check how much you know. But what happens in AIMS is, when you're writing a national level examination, when you're writing an examination of that caliber, the minute you start writing the exam, instead of, even if it's a very straightforward question, we tend to spend a little extra. We tend to go on a little extra, double confirm, put mark for review, even though you know that that is the answer. I'll come back to it later. Please, my dear students, those kind of things don't happen. Right? Let me be very, very clear. It should not happen that you work so hard and you lose it out in those 3 hours in the exam. NEET is coming is your final examination. I'm not here to stress you all, but I'm just going to tell you all that you have to take it a little bit more. When you sit for the exam, when just say, like 1 hour before you're called to the exam hall, you're sitting in front of the computer. So you got to keep telling yourself that, okay, now this 3 hours is very important to me, and this 3 hours I have to handle my, I have to be smart at handling my time very well, right? So whenever I find that a particular question, there is an answer, and I'm almost sure of the answer, then you just mark it, just save, press save and go. Later, if you get time, when you're going back, you can always, think about changing the answer or something. I would definitely not recommend you all to change the answers once you have marked it. Right? Only if you're very, 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 not confirmed, two of both the options are like almost similar, then probably you can push it for mark for review, and then you can go. Otherwise, mark it. Why? Because in NEET, you have 240 questions. It's not 200, it's 240 questions, and it's the same 3 hours. So you see the amount of time, you have another 40 questions. And this had happened last time in the NEET examination, where so many students could not go beyond 160 to 170 MCQs in the first 2.5 hours. In the rest half an hour, they just went through almost 80 questions. Without reading the options properly, without reading the questions properly. You don't read except, you don't read never, you don't read always. There are clues within the question, there are clues within the solutions, but we don't have time to see it, because, we have wasted a lot of time trying to solve those long questions, which ultimately give you the same 1 mark. Even if it's a simple question, that also gives you 1 mark. So you got to be smart, right? You've got to be smart. So when you're sitting there for the NEET exam, I'm going to tell this today, and all my CEDEES family, I'm going to tell this again and again to you as you keep listening to my voice messages, that you've got to be very smart during those 3 hours to tackle this thing in a very, very nice way. So when you sit down for 240 questions, when you see if you're reading a particular question, right, you just try to double read it if you can quickly, and if it's still not ringing, your heart, your mind, your body, everything is very silent. You just don't know what's going on. Skip the question. Don't try to spend too much time. There will be questions which come later, which would be very, very, very simple. Very, very simple. They'll probably ask you nerve supply of masseter muscle. And if you get confused at that time and you get tensed, even simple questions like that, you might, So time management is very crucial. So you got to keep telling yourself, inception, right from today until December 16, and I got to be smart during those 3 hours. I got to do my time management well. I'll speak a little bit about time management a little later, but just keep that in mind, right? I'll finish all the questions that I know very well first, just rush through. I'll finish that off, and then I'll slowly get into the second and the third round. I'll come to that later with voice messages, but as of now, please remember that time management for NEET is much more important rather than your aims, simply because of the number of questions. You have 240 MCQs in the same 3 hours, and it's not a joke, right? And this is a big lesson for most of us who have written the NEET last year, and you know how most of us struggle because you could not do the last 30-40 questions, and it became a big issue. So time management is very crucial. Okay, this is the first thing. Now, keep aims aside. Aims is done. Right? If you're still in the hangover of aims, and if you're still thinking that, okay, I could have done better, I could have done this, so just leave it. Just leave it, right? So let's say that there are around 20 seats for aims. You imagine yourself that you got the 21st rank. End of story, right? Okay. So don't bother too much. Don't dig too much into it, and just keep it on one side and tell, okay, I am not, this is over now. Let me just move on. Let me just move on. Right? The most important exam is coming, and every exam is different. They are mutually exclusive. It's like your chi-square test, like every box, you have the rows and columns. Each and every box is different. So aims is totally different, and NEET is totally different. They're like two sides. They're the same coin, but they're opposite. They're totally the opposites. They're like opposites. So what goes on here will not go there. I've received a lot of WhatsApps, so there were hardly any questions on general surgery, there were hardly any questions on micro or DM, so should we do that for NEET also? Can we skip those subjects? I'm like, oh my God, this is the biggest blunders that you can ever do. Please don't do that, okay? Now, you have, let's say, around 19 subjects or 20 subjects to go. Every subject is important for NEET. Every subject is important for NEET. You cannot afford to take it lightly. Maybe for the aims, we could say that the clinical subjects become a little more important than your basics, but when it comes to NEET, my dear students, all subjects are equally important. I hope I'm driving home the point. You cannot prefer a clinical subject over a basic subject, right? All subjects have to be done equally. That's the first thing in your mind. Secondly, one small difference here is that forensic odontology has never been important for aims. Hardly asked. Once in a while they ask about a tritubercular theory. If you've seen those questions before, repeats, like that. But otherwise, forensic odontology becomes a very important part of your NEET examination, and I really don't know how many of you have given some time for the forensic odontology. Any of your MCQ book will have, forensic odontology. If you go back in all those questions there, even in your BDS Next and CEDEES app, we have given notes on forensic odontology. Just go through it. Gustafsson and Demerjian and all those bite marks, lip marks, palatal rugae, rugoscopy, dactylography, all these things, they're very, very important because NEET has specified something for forensic odontology, and that's something which has not been of that much of importance for the aims, but it is important for the NEET because they give you some questions. So if there are some of you who have not done forensic odontology, any of your MCQ books, let's say Pulse majorly or Dentist, questions in forensic odontology, if you have not done or if you have not given time, first sit and complete that, right? Because you might have not stressed on it, but it's very, very important for the coming NEET examination. So keep that in mind. Now, so first and foremost, I'm going to throw aims off. Right? I'm going to keep aims on one side and say, I don't care. Aims results will be declared in a few days from now. If you're there among the top 20, fantastic. We'll go for a party. We'll celebrate. If your name is not there, no problem. The most important exam is coming, and let me give my best for that examination. Also, The mistakes that you did in AIMS must not happen for the NEET. Or don't think that I am very bad in time management, I'll also manage my time very badly in NEET. This is called projection, right? None of that is going to happen. As I'm telling you again, they are mutually exclusive. Remember the words, they are mutually exclusive. What's happened in NEET, what's happened in AIMS is AIMS, what's going to happen in NEET is NEET. It's a totally different ball game. So how you face the examination, how you read from now on matters, right? Whatever you do in the next 24 days matters a lot. You all know that throughout the year you've been studying, but the next 3 to 3.5 weeks, take it up in a very, I'm not saying, don't get too tensed about it, but you just have to remember one thing is that whatever I have studied, whatever I have learned for the last 6 months, 8 months, 1 year, my mind should just look at it once. I have to see it once, right? The explanations of which I have not understood, the tabular columns what I have not understood, synopsis should be given much more time. And some of you have not done the synopsis of oral pathology or microbiology or maybe let's say dental histology or general surgery not very well. Please make sure that you do the synopsis, go through those lines, because synopsis helps you to capture the key words when you have those long questions. My dear students, if they're going to give you long questions again for this particular need, we will have these mock exams, not today's, but the subsequent mock exams with long questions, which will make sure that you spend more time. But when you see those long questions, what you have to do is to look for the keyword and see what is it that the examiner is asking. You're not bothered about that fellow's name and he had a dog and he had a farm, he loved going for resorts, and that is not important. But what is the keyword that he is stressing him out? So just look at all that, all of you, and I'm sure that you will be able to arrive at the answer. Okay, again, time management, keep that in mind. Okay, so AIMS and NEET, let's just come back to NEET. Let me just tell you what is it that you have to do for the next 24 days or so. Okay, now let's say that the most important thing that you have to do when you look at it is that we have around 24 days. Is it possible for me to do every subject twice, right? If there are students, now see, I know that when I'm giving a very general lecture like this, it's going to hit students at different levels. It's going to hit students of different levels of preparation, right? But I will be speaking about an average person, a person who has been really working hard, and in our BDS Next or the CEDEES test series that we have every week, and if you're there among the top, let's say around top 500, top 600, top 700, you can probably think about accelerating the same timetable. You can try doing every subject twice, right? Otherwise, please just listen to this and you'll get an idea. Now, what you have to do is, how many hours you're going to study? Let's say that on an average, you're going to give around 10 to 12 hours a day for your preparation. If there are still students studying 3 to 4 hours a day or 4 to 6 hours a day, I think it's very less. My dear students, December 16th, you finish your exams and go, man, freak out. You want to go to Goa, you want to go anywhere, you want to sit near the beach, you want to go to a hill station, you want to visit every dhaba in town, you want to eat, you want to drink, you do whatever you want to do after December 16th. After December 16th. Now it is time for us to study. There's time, so during that time, when it's time to work, let us work. When it's time to enjoy and freak out like there is no tomorrow, right? That's the beauty of life, right? Your mind needs to refresh, your mind needs to relax, but after December 16th. Okay, so let's say that you're giving your time here, right? So the major time of your preparation, let's say that if you have planned for one subject a day, ideally you must do one subject a day, right? If it's a small subject, you can do 2 a day, right? Radiology and pedo and all that can be done, almost 2 subjects a day. But if it's a big subject, 1, right? If it's a very big subject, maybe 1.5. But that is the thing, you have to finish. What is it now? You have a major chunk here. This will be roughly around 8 to 9 hours, right? This is major. Now, what are you going to study in this major chunk of 8 to 9? I'm going to finish one subject entirely. In other words, let me say I'm taking perio. I take a perio. I just look away from where have I studied perio. I've studied perio from my pulse, or I've studied perio from dentist, whatever. So that's going to be my first source. That's my quant, that's my piece, right? So I take up that book and I go to finish every line, every synopsis ka line, even a dot and a full stop. Just you have to brush through it. Remember, you're not studying them for the first time. You're not understanding them. Understanding was when you're studying. Now you're, like just capturing it. So your mind, suppose you've forgotten small things like incisions in your surgery. Do you give 11 first, 15 first? Do you give 12? Or where do you use your Aubens or Merrifield knife? They're very simple. But sometimes, we might tend to forget these small things. Just go through it so your mind registers it. So this bulk of the time is going to be given for that. Am I clear? When I say 8 to 9 hours, should be like you should try to finish one subject. So what do you do? One is your pulse of dentist, whichever MCQ book you have studied. That's a major. And then along with this, you'd also do your class notes, whatever notes I've given while taking the classes. You all must be having the class notes and your institute papers. All of this will come here in this 8 to 9 hours, right? That is for that particular subject. So you're studying a subject in its entirety. That's what this bulk time. Then you have 2 slots here. One slot is exclusively going to be kept for your previous papers. Take up Red Book Volume 2 and finish all the NEET papers, finish the image-based questions, finish your, there's a JIPMA question paper, there's a PJ question paper. Now some of you are asking me, so should we do the AIMS mocks for NEET? My dear students, it's dentistry. The subject is the same, right? Maybe, so you really cannot pinpoint and say that, no, this question is for NEET, this question is for AIMS. You can, but I think that's at micro level. But at this point of time, what you have in front of you, you got to complete it, right? So just zoom through, right? If you had almost 3 months time, then probably I could have told you, okay, now this is majorly for AIMS, so this is majorly for NEET. But now at this point of time, you just got to sit and do everything, right? Now this will be, let's say, a slot for around 1.5 hours, and all of your time compartmentalization is very, very, very important. I've received lots of WhatsApps from students saying, so I wish I could have just read the BDS Next App questions again and again. I could have got a lot of questions. You must have seen how many questions were almost similar, like your confidence would have built up, I agree that in AIMS they ask certain questions on vaccine vial monitor, VVM, and they asked you about the Nagpur classification of cleft lip. Nobody is going to know, and it really does not make a difference. Even the top student will not know it. Forget about everybody else. So it really does not matter if you have not answered those questions. But if you have not answered questions like simple questions, almost 100 to 120 questions in AIMS were straightforward, very simple, or with a little bit of more application. That's all. It's as simple as that. So you have to get those questions correct. That blue color pipe that is coming down, very straightforward questions. Okay, so this 1.5 hours is for you to do your previous papers, and in other words, your NEET papers. Are there questions going to be repeated for NEET? They can and they might, very high probability, so please make sure you do that. Red Book Volume 2, or you can probably go through your pulse. Backside is given all those NEET-based questions and all. There's recent papers, for AIMS or for NEET, whatever it is. You can go through that, and you can go through your Red Book Volume 2. And plus, of course, one paper, once it is done, you need not keep doing it 100 times, right? 2 or 3 times the job is done. Then, like after you've done for 2 or 3 days, the next 2 or 3 days, probably what you can do is go through each and every question paper in your BDS Next Step, starting right from all the live exams, all the AIMS mocks we have had, all the revision exams what we have had, each and every question. So this is not going to be subject specific. This top portion is a subject specific part. This 3 hours what you're going to give here is going to be a non-specific portion of your preparation. So this 1.5 hours will go for your, what are you going to go for? Your NEET repeats, your Red Book Volume 2, and you're going to go completely for your, all the questions in your BDS Next app, or the CEDEES app, whatever. Go through each and every question, go through each and every classification, what has been given there, and just try going through. If there's sometimes, even in the explanations, there are wonderful diagrams, so it's easy for you to just flip through. You're going to bookmark the question to what you want to, but just try to go ahead and finish that, okay? The last 1.5 hours, now this 1.5 hours is especially for the volatile part of every subject, right? Now, this 1.5 hours is very, very important because, you see, if I'm looking at pedo, for example, the entire pedo is not difficult, but there are certain parts of pedo which I have really not stressed upon. It could either be behavior management, or it could be those reflexes. What is a Moro reflex? What is a parachute reflex? What is a Landau reflex? What is a plantar reflex? Maybe that is not. So when you look at a particular subject, you can just flip through your MCQ book. You'll have an idea, this is where I am weak. If you look at anatomy, osteology, embryology, majority of us are weak. If you look at biochemistry, maybe all those simple things on the simple classifications on essential, non-essential fatty acids, maybe vitamin dosages, maybe your rate limiting steps, that. When it comes to ortho, most of us are weak in orthodontic materials. I've still not understood whether stainless steel has higher friction or nitrile has surface friction, or which is higher elastic modulus. I tend to go wrong. If it comes to DM, whether it is Wrought alloys or whether it is, when it comes to community, my concepts on PSM, that is preventive and social medicine, are not very clear. So every subject, there are certain gray areas, and this is individual specific. For me, maybe I'm very confident with PSM, but I might not be very confident with the dental part of, for example, I might be very poor in indices. Indices, again, please note, indices. I'm very poor in indices. So let me say, so this 1.5 hours should be kept for that. So should it be done strictly like this? As much as possible. If you feel that this 8 to 9 hours is not sufficient for you to give remember, again, you are not studying it, you are revising it. Okay, so then what you can do is to make sure that, like if there's something pending, please take it to the next day, but complete that subject and then start the next subject. So, you should just quickly like this. You should not, what is this? I've seen it somewhere. No, it's not like that, right? So just, you got to be on a josh. You can take a walk in the morning. You can just, make sure that your endorphin levels are high. Please take bath twice a day if you want to. Drink hot coffee. And go for a walk, take multivitamins, take vitamin C. I've been telling you this again and again. So do all that, make sure that your health is in the pink, so that you will have the energy to take this forward. So when you take this forward, as you're approaching the exams, December the 16th, and again, study heavily in the afternoon time. 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock should be your time when you can focus and concentrate heavily. 1 to 6 p.m. 1 to 6 p.m. is the time when you must focus and study completely, right? It is better you sleep late and get up late. In the sense, you can sleep at 2 or 3 and you can get up at 7, 8, 9, no problem. At least 6 hours of sleep, and after that you start, have your breakfast, take a bath, do whatever you want to, but make sure that this 1 to 6 you should study properly, right? Because afternoon time, for most of us, it's a sleepy time. The minute the food goes in, your energy level comes down. Unfortunately, we have to be very pepped up for our NEET exams. So again, yeah. So please make sure that this is done. Now, as you're approaching towards your NEET, you're that last 1 week before NEET, you may have a few subjects. So how you divide the subjects also is very important. You can start with your toughest subjects, right? It could be general medicine, it could be general pathology, general surgery. It's always best to mix one basic and one clinical, because it just gives you that little bit of freshness. If you're doing general medicine, energy level is down. You're doing perio, energy level is high. You're doing general surgery, energy level is down. When you're doing pedo, energy level is high. So it's better to mix up with one basic and one clinical, and you can probably take it a little bit forward, right? So, so yeah, that's that. And then what you have to do is make sure that in the last 1 week, you try to accelerate and make sure that, like by the 10th or 11th or something like that, your job is done. Then you have the last 5 days left, right? As you're reading and studying these subjects, there would be areas which you feel that, okay, these are most volatile, let me mark it out. By the time I'm hoping that you've finished all the previous papers, all the questions in your BDS Next or your CEDEES app, you're done with everything. Important things, your bookmarks, you can go through it. The last 1.5 hours, you've tried to cover up your gray areas in every subject. Every subject will have its own gray areas. So please make sure that that is covered. So before you reach the last, like let's say the 10th or 11th, so that you have the last 4 to 5 days to sit and revise the most volatile part, right? At that time, it's majorly got to do with your, you would majorly stick to MCQs. Of most of the subjects, you'll have to do the MCQs of almost all the subjects, and then you'll have to again divide your time for doing your previous year's papers, and BDS Next, whatever bookmark questions are there, and your notes, what you have prepared, the class notes, what we have given to you. These are things which you have to do in the last 4 to 5 days, right? What to do one day before and how to keep your mind one day before, I think that I will tell you as a voice message. As of now, my dear students, for the next 24 days, you have to keep your mind calm, right? You should not think that maybe my aims didn't go well, my NEET also will not go well. All that is secondary, not important. This 24 days is going to be so crucial. I'm telling you all again, aims and NEET are mutually exclusive. So just forget about aims. And you have been preparing for NEET throughout, right, from day one till now. That is all the subjects. We have studied all subjects equally. So it's time for us to go back and finish. Please try to follow this timetable at the rate of one subject a day. Students who feel that you can do better, then your weak subjects, try to do it twice a day. Not twice a day, weak subject twice before your NEET exams, and others probably, so this you must follow, okay? This is 8 to 9 is what you can change. And students who feel that, okay, I can probably do a subject very fast, then you can probably try to complete everything twice before the NEET exams. Again, don't overstress. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to do it twice, you have to do it once. How much you have recollected, how much you have understood, how much you are able to reproduce when asked. These are things which are more important. But again, you got to touch each and every point that you have already studied. It's better not to study anything new. Please make sure that all your picture-based questions you do properly, and as you solve the BDS next step, you get a lot of questions, a lot of picture-based questions that can be seen. It will give you a lot of confidence, when you keep looking at that. So it will really help you all as you keep approaching your exams. Again, my dear students, whenever you get an applied question, right? So when you go for an exam, it cannot happen that you studied from Pulse or Dentist or BDS next step, and the same questions come. Of course, all of them are from the same subject. So you can't expect it like that, right? So when you sit there in the exam hall, it's our smartness to eliminate the options and then arrive at the right answer. It'll come slowly, and it'll all go fine as long as you keep studying. And I would love to use the word which we use every time. The word is what? Persist. Write it down somewhere and tell persist till December the 16th. Morning, 10 to 12, from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock, you can probably go through the previous papers, have lunch, because it has happened that NEET last time, in some centers, it got over at 6:30. You can imagine how tired. The paper was given at 3:30, not at 2, 3:30. And the paper got over at 6:30 in the evening. So that's the reason I want that 1 to 6, as my dear students, please make sure that you study from 1 to 6 with a lot of spirit and enthu, that you can do well, okay? Right, so persist, that's the right word, till December the 16th, and after that I'm going to freak out, right? Do not think about what if I don't get, what if this happens, what if that happens. Forget all that. All that you can do after December the 16th. Until December 16th, my only job is to study. My only job is to work hard and give my level best for my exams. And that's exactly what I'm going to do for the next 23 to 24 days that I have. Okay? Wish you all the best. Take care. God bless. Love you all. Bye.